Got one more comment just on the growth hack thing that's specific to crypto is the advisors. So, you have this opportunity to invite people to come and be an advisor for your, for your ICO. So find the right advisors. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but you can find advisors that have this network that you don't have in Silicon Valley or don't have in like whatever industry that you're going into. And if you can find the right ones that you can truly leverage, they'll help you get the whole flywheel started. So they'll bring you to syndicates and pools that they know, or they'll bring you to the kind of technology that you need to find or whatever. I would say for the most part, our advisors were pictures on our website versus actually advising for us. But if you can find the right ones, it'll make a huge impact, and they don't really cost you anything.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And it's like, do what you can with what you have, and when you know more, you'll do more, and when you have more, you can also do more. And so being able to find a growth hack, there isn't this one simple cookie cutter solution, otherwise everybody would be doing it. But for me personally, having the Snapay core community on Telegram has been very, very helpful. And without them, I don't think we would have been able to triple in size, because they believe so much in what we're doing. They've been able to help us grow and promote and spread the message, which is really important.
And I think an important thing as well to remember is that Rome wasn't built in one day. I think there's this fake notion in our world that, especially because we hear these success stories of individuals being able to raise in such short amount of time, is remembering that that's not going to be the case for everyone. All right, so let's open up the floor. Yep.
I have a question. Something you guys haven't talked about yet is competitive analysis when you do your market research. How important is that? How much time should companies spend on it? And looking at your competitors and what they're doing, how you differentiate yourself to them, et cetera, et cetera.
Don't spend any money on it. So just do it yourself. It'll take you one Saturday. We after our crowd sale, we started trying to look at other successful ICOs and trying to figure out if there was some sort of pattern based on GitHub commits or Telegram followers, and it's just impossible to know. The market is so volatile that you just don't know whether or not a company did well because they just happened to do their ICO in September of 2017, or if it was, the CEO is somebody who's semi-famous, or we at least were not able to come to any kind of true correlation that we would trust across any metric that would say this is something that we should copy. I don't know if you guys have had any better experience.
I agree with that. Doing your competitive analysis as part of your homework, as any startup should do. You really need to know what makes you unique, why what you're doing and what you're building is important. And at the same time, it's important to, because I've had a lot of copycats, people that call themselves Snapay all over the world post the TechCrunch article last year. So it's important to know what makes us unique, but at the same time, we're still kind of stealth. So there's not much on our website or much that we disclose pre to our next product release.
I very much agree. I think it's very important to know your value proposition, what differs you from the competition. There are a lot of tools that make it pretty easy for you to see. If you know who your competitors are, there's a lot of tools like SimilarWeb, Alexa, that can help you find out where their traffic is coming from, and that might be able to help you leverage their followers if you know that you have a value proposition that maybe solves a pain point or a problem that they're experiencing and that's not currently being solved by the current solution.
So Svandis, we do a number of different things. We're collecting data, and then we're also through decentralized data submission, incentivizing that. But then we're also offering, typical trading analytics tools and things like that. So, and those tools and functionalities are actually a lot. So I spend less time talking about those because those are actually where all the competitors are. And to her point, our value proposition was really in how we're collecting data and using behavioral and economics to incentivize the submission. And so that's where I'm spending 99% of my content creation side is on the unique proposition.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is that this is a constantly growing market. So it's not, especially if you come from the e-commerce world or, traditional marketing and other, you're eating away, someone's buying a toaster from you, which means that they're not buying a toaster from one of your competitors. And in this space, it's, every time there's a bull market, the people in the crypto market is going to go up 50% or whatever, right? So there's a constantly expanding market, and so it's not a zero-sum game. You don't necessarily have to think about it in terms of I'm stealing a customer from one of my competitors. And so really the more competition that you have in the market, I think the better, because one, it's somebody that you can copy from, like their best practices, and two, it's somebody else who's educating the market about whatever it is that your product's about.
Personally, I also didn't see it as competition, but it's people helping you building the marketplace and like putting fish in the big blue ocean. So even if there's a couple of companies that do the same, it doesn't matter in the long run. Like in 10 years, 20 years, you're all going to be winners because it's going to be so much bigger than it is right now. So it doesn't really matter, and you should focus on your own stuff and not what other people do. That's never a good idea anyways.
Any other questions?
I was wondering, can you guys list any brands, any crypto brands that have just totally nailed it with the branding in the launch that you can list as, example of here's how to do it right? That was a beautiful job.
Centraland.
Oh, yeah.
I think Bloom did a really good job.
Centraland, the VR project.
Bloom, I think, did a great job. So, like, as soon as I saw their trees or flowers in any ad, like, I immediately recognized it was Bloom. So they were, and Rentberry also had really great design and branding.
During a bear market, none. During a bull market, I would say the one that really caught my eye until they did their horrific rebrand was VeChain, just because I believe in, business applications, and they had, Jim Breyer, they were signing up all these major partners, and for me that spoke more than everything else, so they were focusing on that. But then they kind of went, they were going very professional. They were going, okay, let's, we're this new wave of crypto for companies, and then all of a sudden their rebrand looked like they were trying to do a blockbuster video for aliens, and they've gone from like 50,000 Satoshi down to like, I think there was like 22,000 Satoshi. Slowly just bleeding out, which I like to talk about because when my friend holds a master node and I like to rub it in, but yeah.
I'm obviously biased, but I very much liked the branding of Blockport, very minimalistic. And I think Ethos did a pretty good job at branding as well. I very much liked the color scheme and the way they communicate.
The original Ethereum branding at the time was pretty cool. I mean, it's so overdone now. Everybody's copying the geometry, but at the time, it was novel because we had like the Bitcoin B, and it was such a piece of shit. Right, we slanted it, so it was really sad. But there's plenty of space to do awesome design work. Just come in and show up. You'll be better than the vast majority of us by default.
And then Moon. No one said Moon yet today.
We're doing great.
Yeah. Sorry.
And there's also that typical phrase, not to be cheesy, which is, if you're not embarrassed by your first product or first release, then you didn't release fast enough. So it's okay to be embarrassed by your design as long as you eventually fix it.
One last question.
I actually wouldn't agree with that in the ICO
Disagree.
space, because you have one chance to get in front of a lot of the people that are going to be contributing to your ICO, and they'll look at it once, and if they don't have a reason to come back, they're never going to come back again. So I think you're actually better off like waiting to go to market until you've got your white paper tightened up and you've got your website tightened up, than to try to go to market with like some crappy Word doc in Times New Roman that you're trying to show to the first investors to get some seed money. Like, that's not a good strategy.
If you have to make the decision, though, as a bootstrapping entrepreneur, and everything I'm saying is from my personal bootstrapping experience, to invest $50K in marketing and design or $50K in a product that works, I personally would say build out your product and get it out the door.
You shouldn't be bootstrapping an ICO.
But I didn't do an ICO. Airdrops only.
Any other question? Oh, over there.
I've done an IPO, and after you've done the IPO, you have all this liquidity. And how are you guys hedging that liquidity? How do you hedge the liquidity? How do you prevent market downturn?
I think any company that's post ICO has this issue, right? Because if you finish your raise in the beginning of January, now all of the people who contributed are like, you guys are idiots. You didn't liquidate all of it for fiat. Like, this is nuts. Vice versa, if the market had gone up another 5x, those same people would have said, I cannot believe you sold all the Ethereum that you raised. You should have held on to it. Now you have 5x less than you had. So I don't think there's not really a right answer, because you're basically at that point, I think, playing with your contributors' money, right? And so depending on how diversified you were during your crowd sale, you may have enough fiat to go on ahead and run the business without having to touch the BTC or ETH you raised, or you may be in a position where you do need to liquidate some of your crypto in order to pay payroll or marketing, et cetera. So I think it's different for every ICO. But whatever you did was the wrong answer for the people in your Telegram, that's for sure.
Yeah, I second that, having seen it 7 times. Portfolio management in the space is pretty bad across the board. Your community hates you either way for what you do. But the right answer is probably just